I've got some questions that a couple of questions that have come in already that I'm going to cover. And I'll start on this question here regarding volume. So I've been asked this question a couple of times. And as you can see, I've been kind of experimenting here just before starting the workshop to see if I could figure something out again. All right, so I'm going to, let's see, let me get this out of the way. So let me go a little further into what I've been trying to do here with the volume. Yeah, you know, sometimes volume can be a good indication of a, you know, like a breakout, you know, which, you know, continuation in a trend direction, or as we can see right here, this huge volume spike. Sometimes they are good at identifying eventual reversal points. So we can see here that we got this massive volume spike early in the morning, and then, you know, a little couple of bars of consolidation, and then all the buyers got exhausted, and it looks like, you know, got this nice downtrend. So the question is, you know, how can you identify a volume spike that's, you know, approximately 200% or twice the volume of the previous bar? And, you know, BloodHound doesn't have mathematical equations built into it. You know, so when you're dealing with percentage stuff, you know, that's a mathematical equation. You know, we do have the ATR option in the solver, so that helps you identify volatility of price or volatility of an instrument. So I've been kind of playing to see if around to see if the ATR, if there's a way to use the ATR to identify a 200% volume spike. And, you know, this kind of comes close. I can't, it doesn't look like I can exactly, it doesn't exactly allow you to identify, you know, a precise percentage. You know, so if you're looking for 150% volume spike versus a 200% volume spike, you know, it doesn't look like this is really going to do that, but it may accomplish, you know, your goal in trying to find a volume spike. So it may work for that that purpose. So I'm going to get rid of the gray line here is the volume moving average. I'm going to get rid of that. So now we're just left with the red. The red line here is the ATR indicator, you know, which all the solvers have the ATR parameter available in them. So that's why I'm playing around with the ATR. So it's ATR, and I have volume going into it. So it looks like this is, well, no, actually looking at this again, it doesn't really look like, I mean, if you look at only the volume spikes, it looks like it's working, but of course, if you look in other places here, the ATR is just well below, the ATR is well below just the standard volume there. So, actually, let me put the volume moving average back on the chart, and maybe a combination of logic might get us closer to identifying those volume spikes. Let's see, orange, change this to blue. All right, put that on the right panel. There we go. All right, I'm going to stretch this out and make it pretty obvious. There we go. All right, so what I'm kind of seeing is, let's see, let me get my little chart markers here. So looking at, so if we're looking at this small volume comparison to the next one, I can see the volumes, exceeded our moving average, and it's hard to tell if it exceeded the ATR. So let me change that plot style. Using the line plot style makes it kind of difficult to make exact comparisons on the chart. So I'm going to change this to a hash. See how that, there we go, that's much better. Put that back on a 3. So unfortunately, yeah, see, so the ATR is the red hash now. So this volume here is clearly twice the volume of the previous. Actually, no, I'm sorry, it is working. That's right, the volume did exceed our ATR, and volume did exceed this volume moving average. So, yeah, it looks like this combination of logic actually might be working. So let's see. So what I'm looking for are these volume spikes where the volume exceeds both the ATR and the moving average. So that one works there. And let's see, well, this one qualifies as well, but that's clearly not twice the volume, or, I mean, it's more volume, but it's not twice the volume. However, I see that we could possibly implement some additional logic. So it looks like the ATR here on this bar is a little bit less than the previous ATR, but also I'm thinking probably more importantly, the ATR is less than our moving average line. Right, so the red ATR is lower or less than the blue volume moving average. So maybe that needs to be an additional logic in there. Right. So I have to make sure the so like on this one here, that worked out good. Our ATR is above the moving average. And of course, one thing that you're going to make when you're doing these kind of comparisons, you have to make sure that all of your indicators are using the same scaling. You have to make sure they're all using the right scaling here. So make sure that one of your indicators isn't using the left scaling or the, let's see, what's the other type of scaling? Scale justification, what is it? Overlay. Yeah, so all of your indicators, if when you have all your indicators on the same sub panel, make sure they're all set to right scaling. That's the only way you can make a apples to apples comparison when we're doing things like this. So let's go through and see if I can identify some more. So this one qualifies. Our ATR is up here above the moving average, so that one qualifies. All right. So far, so good. So, Tony, I wonder if Tony's in here. He probably is. Tony's been asking this question for a while, and I've been kind of thinking about it in the back of my head, and I haven't really figured anything out, but it looks like finally I have. So, yeah, I do see Tony's in here, so. All right. Let's see, all right, so there's another volume spike right there that qualifies. So this one, this volume spike doesn't qualify because the ATR is below our moving average. So at least we kind of got the concept down. So we'll build this real quick, and then for those of you who have been looking for this type of volume analysis in your system, you just have to fine-tune what moving average you want to use, what period you want to use for your moving average in the volume. And I think, let's see, well, all right, so here I'm using an ATR of 1. Let's see, I thought I had it set to 2. Let me change this to 2 and see what kind of changes that makes. And all right, so this candle, that volume spike still is valid. All right, it looks like we might have a problem on this one. So I'm going to have to really scale this up in order to take a look. All right, so setting the ATR to 2 kind of failed us on this volume spike here. So we definitely have a more significant volume spike, but it's not 200%. Looks like maybe it's 33% greater or something like that, 25% greater. So with that, I think we'll probably, now let me scale this down. I think I'll probably set the ATR back to a 1 period. Let's see, this bar here still looks good. This bar still looks good. And yeah, this one looks good. Let's see, yep. This one is invalid. And oh, so this one didn't qualify anymore because our ATR is below the moving average. All right, so let's set the ATR back to a 1 period. There. All right, so we'll go with those parameters for now, and then we can check it further on. All right, so let me get BloodHound on the chart here. There we go, our nice green bars. And so let's open up the interface. And the first thing I want to do is provide a name in here. So I'm going to use last week's workshop and just change the date. So oops, it's the 16th. Okay, great. So now the next thing is, so what I'm going to be using is primarily comparison solvers. So we're going to be comparing the volume to the ATR and volume to the moving average, and then comparing the ATR to the volume moving average. So we'll be doing several comparisons. And they all these comparison solvers all have to be in agreement. So they're all going to have to give us a signal at the same time. So that's going to require an AND logic. All right, so in other words, the volume is going to have to be greater than the ATR. and the volume has to be greater than the moving average, and the ATR has to be greater than the moving average. So we have three separate conditions that are all ANDed together. I'll just jump over here to the logic board, and I'll just start working on the logic board instead of working on the solver tab this time. Alright, so let's see, I'll just call this a volume spike. Let's call it a volume spike for now. We really haven't fine-tuned it to figure out how to get like a twice volume or 150% volume, so it's just a volume spike for now. So I'm going to drop a comparison solver on here, and let's see, I'll start with comparing the volume to the ATR and then comparing volume to the moving average. All right. So let's name this first. This is volume to the ATR. And I'll put the period in there, so it's an ATR 1 period. So in indicator A, so our primary indicator is going to be the volume, and indicator B, our secondary indicator, will be the ATR, and on the next solver it'll be the moving average. So we have a little shortcut here. You know, these types here are kind of some shortcuts, and so I'll just put the volume in there. Makes it easy. You know, I could have left it on indicator and then just changed this to the volume indicator right here. I'll get the same result. This is just a little shortcut. And so let's see. Next, I will set this to the ATR. Okay, so now here's something different that you'll have to do, right? So we have the volume being fed into the ATR's input series. So that means I need to nest volume into this ATR here for BloodHound. So let me go get the volume. So there's the volume, and I'll hit the nested button. So now we have the volume data being fed into the ATR. So now I just need to set the period correctly. So we're using 1 period ATR, and there are no settings for the volume here, right? And the ATR only has one plot out, so that's good, and so does the volume only has one plot out, so that's good. All right, so we'll check that, and we're simply just looking for our volume to be above the ATR by any amount, so we can leave this at 0 ticks here. And I should have connected this up earlier. All right. So you can see in the comparison solver's default mode, right, we can see we're getting some long signals and short signals, but we only want signals when the volume is above the ATR, or in other words, all these long signals are the only signals we want, but we need long and short signals because this volume spike doesn't tell you the direction of the market, it just tells you volume. So we need a short and a long signal out when we get these volume spikes. So that way you can use your other indicators to determine what direction you want the signal for. So I'm going to change the short output here to be the same as the long output. So there we go. All right, so now whenever the volume is greater than the ATR, it's all marked. So now we just need to start adding some additional comparison solvers to kind of filter this out. So let me start by dropping an AND node down here. There. All right, so I'm going to grab another new comparison solver, and I'm going to plug it into the result node and set it up, get it working first, and then I'll connect it to the AND node. So this time we're going to compare volume to the volume MA. And I'm just using the default 14 period. All right, volume. Switch this over to the volume MA. All right, so we're gonna leave the period alone, and this only has one plot, so everything's good. And once again, so we have a long signal right when the volume is above the moving average, and a short signal when the volume is below the moving average. And so we want a long and short signal only when the volume is above the moving average. So I will have to change my short outputs again. There we go. So that looks good. Whenever the volume is above the moving average, we have our signals coming out. So let's take a look at two together. Okay, great. So we're getting closer. We've definitely identified some volume spikes. So now we just need to clean up a few more. So we don't want this one right here. We want to get rid of this signal as well, and these three over here too. So the next step is to compare the ATR to the moving average. All right, so I'll grab another new comparison solver, connect it up to the result node, and change my indicators here. Well, first let me give it a name. So we're comparing the ATR 1 period to the volume, and oops, too many O's. The volume MA 14 period. All right, so I'll grab an ATR, and then next I need to nest the volume into it. All right, change the ATR period back to 1. And once again, only one plot, so that's good for the ATR. And the volume, there is no setting changes. There's only one plot, so that's all good. All right, and then next we'll set indicator B to the volume moving average. All right, we'll leave the default period there. And once again, as you can see from looking at the output here, I need to change my short outputs again. So all these comparison solvers have the same long and short output settings. And great, that looks good. So you can see now with this comparison solver, you can see this bar is not marked anymore. No signal there, and no signal on this bar here either. Let's connect that up. All right, we'll take a look. So far what I'm seeing, it looks pretty accurate. Yeah, these all look like volume spikes that are about double the previous volume, or at least very close to it. Let's see, I'm going to check. Let's see, which one there was one of them here that I wanted to make sure of. Oh, this guy right here. All right, so our volume is at 850, and this one's 370. So yes, that's double the volume. Okay. Yeah. So this one here was a good signal, and all the rest looked pretty obvious as good double volume spikes. Well, all right. Let's check. Let's check this one right here. All right, so our volume is 250 for this one is 131. Ooh, it's very close. It's not quite double. It's only a few volumes less than double. Yeah, so double this volume would be 262, but we have 254, so it's just under double. You know, I would say for most systems that's probably close enough. You know, the market never operates on exact numbers. And all right, so here's a problem. So let's mark this guy. I'll use the green dot. So that guy's a problem. Let's see. Yeah, it is marked. Okay, so to clearly we're looking for volume spikes, so volume has to be rising. So let's add another comparison here. We'll check the volume, the current volume, to the volume 1 bar ago, 1 bar back, and make sure that our volume is greater than the previous volume 1 bar back. And that will eliminate that. So that probably should definitely have been a part of our original logic thinking anyways, right? So obviously when you're looking at these volume spikes, what are you seeing? You're seeing volume rise. So that definitely should have been one of our initial, probably should have been the first comparison solver that we had built there. So let's throw another comparison solver on there. And that really should be the initial comparison solver. So I'll put it up on top. All right. So we're going to compare, volume against volume. So indicator A is going to be our current bar. So I'm going to slide the chart all the way over so that this is our current bar. So I'm going to set this over to the volume. And now in order to get the volume of 1 bar back, I have to use the displacement feature, the displacement parameter. And as you can see, when I changed the type to volume, the displacement parameter went away. So for indicator B, I'm just going to have to go and put the regular volume indicator in there. All right, there we go. And now I can set my displacement to 1. And I have to change my short outputs again. All right. So good. There we go. So now we can see only when the volume is rising are the bars being marked here. Plug that in. Plug that in. Let's take a look here. I want to make essentially the racing stripe color is like a brown, right? It's a combination of green and red, which makes kind of this muddy brown, and it might look a little dark for some of you guys, depending on how your monitor is set up. So I'm going to change this to a little brighter green. It'll help that show up a little better for you. There you go. Put it on lime. There we go. That's a little brighter. Makes it a little greener too. All right, I think that does it. We'll just kind of look through here and see. So this one looks good. This one looks good. Let's take a look at this guy here. So we have a volume of what looks like 70. To 157. So that's double the volume. And what happened? So the ATR didn't get above the moving average. So this is not working out in a couple of places. And I think I found another place. All right, so we have a volume of 116 and 238. Yeah, so that is double the volume, and it's not marked. And once again, the ATR is below the moving average. So it looks like this is only going to work when the volume is somewhat low prior to getting volume spikes. This actually might end up being a good thing anyways. So technically it doesn't meet the simple requirement of looking for volume that's double the previous volume, but this actually might be something good. This technical issue of not finding all the double volume spikes might actually play out to be pretty good. Although this does look like looks like this volume spike did kind of identify a minor retracement pullback. So maybe changing our volume moving average might help. Let's see what effect has if we increase it by 50%. I'll change it to 21. Wait, actually that's gonna be worse. That's right, because our ATR is below the moving average, so we need a shorter period moving average. So we'll cut it in half down to 7. No, that still doesn't work for this one bar here. Well, as I was saying earlier, I wasn't sure this was going to be a perfect solution. It finds some of them, but it's not finding all of them. So I guess I'll have to go back to, what originally I was saying to Tony when he was asking this a few months back, that it really, to calculate a percentage change in an indicator requires another indicator to do that mathematical formula. Just as the moving average indicators performing that mathematical function of averaging out prices or data. So once again, we'd need a percentage-based indicator, to calculate percentages, change in percentage. And let me just take a quick look, see if there is an indicator in here called something like percentage change. I looked down in the P's earlier before the workshop started to see if there was a percentage-based indicator. No, nothing there. So, well, I guess for now I'll just leave it there, and I want to try and get to some of the other questions. So that's what it is. So let's see, who is this for? This is for Bercy and Tony. So hopefully maybe this will work. Hopefully this will work good enough in your system. If it doesn't, then it would take like I said, a new indicator, specially coded indicator, to accomplish that percentage change from one bar to another. All right, so let me move on to the next question here. Let's see. Okay, so Tom has a question here. He goes, I want to create a filter so that trades do not occur when the two Bollinger bands are converging, and do occur when they are separating or diverging. So Tom, we have on the drawing board a new solver that will actually detect convergence and divergence. So it's not going to be the divergence indicator that everybody thinks about when they look at the MACD versus price, but strictly a very simple convergence divergence indicator. So specifically for looking at like Bollinger bands and Keltner bands to see if the bands are converging together or diverging away from each other. So all right, so Tom, I'll show you one way you can do this. It's not perfect, and I'll explain why as I start building the system. So let me put the indicator up on here. And I'll just use the default settings. All right, I want to make the bands a little easier to see. There. Okay, great. I'm going to shrink that down. And so what I'm going to do is I'll start a new logic board to work with this system here. So we'll call this the Bollinger band converge slash diverge. So what we're going to be doing is, like we can clearly see, oops, went to grab a triangle, we can clearly see that in this area here, the bands are diverging from each other, right? So the upper one's sloping up and the lower one is sloping down. So clearly they are diverging. And let's see, actually you are wanting to identify diverging, okay, or separating. And then we can also see over here, let's see. Yeah, I think this does it. This is where they're converging. So let me change the color here. All right, so we want to eliminate when they are converging. And this is easily seen because, right, the upper one's sloping down and the lower one is sloping up. Now, where this becomes problematic is when both bands are sloping in the same direction. So we can see here, upper band is sloping down, and also the lower band is sloping down. But they may be sloping down at different rates. So within this area here, you know, the bands are always going to be converging and diverging. So when the bands are sloping in the same direction, that is something that cannot be identified without this special solver, right? Because once again, you're doing multiple mathematical comparisons. So right now, the slope solver will allow us to, right, identify when we have opposite slopes here. But when the slopes are the same, right, that's where the problem becomes. Is when the slopes are the same, then they'd both be marked as just a downslope. And the comparison solver only does a comparison on one bar at a time. So it takes a special solver that actually implements comparing two bars to actually see if something is converging or diverging. So we'll just build this real quick, just so you get the concept here. So I'm going to use a slope solver, and this is going to be, all right. So the BB, let's see, the BB upper, yeah, so the BB upper band, I'll just leave it as upper. All right, change our indicator to the Bollinger, and we're looking at the upper band. And let's see here, so all that we want to mark, so we just want to mark the divergence, so the area in the red triangle. So the upper band, we're only interested in the upper band when it is rising. Yeah, so when it's rising. Yeah. Okay, so I'll leave it like that. And so what I'm going to have to do, let's see here. Yeah, I believe I need to change the evaluate to long only, because we're only interested in a slope, an upward slope. Yeah, an upward slope there. And let's see. It's been a while since I've done this. So all right, yeah, I'm just going to go with that for now, and I'll use some function nodes. Because what I'm thinking about is, this divergence doesn't tell you whether the market, whether price is going short or whether price is going long. So once again, this is just a conditional state of the indicator, and it doesn't identify whether you're in a long, whether the market's going long or whether the market's going short. So once again, out of this just general conditional state of your indicator, you want both a long and a short output at the same time. So that's kind of what I was thinking about in my silence there, is getting a long and a short out at the same time. And then you could use something like, I don't know, the slope of the midman to determine if you want a long signal or a short signal out of this. So I imagine probably most people are looking for a counter trend signal out of this. So I think a lot of people are looking for a long signal if price is coming down. But if we look here on the chart, let's see. Yeah, so here we go. So in this case, price is going up, and we have this divergence. All right, so this divergence doesn't tell you if you're going up or down, just that the bands are widening. So, all right, so next, so we've got the upper band, so I'll work on building the lower band here. So I'll just change my indicator over, and we're interested in the lower band. All right, and let's see. So now, yeah. So the lower band we're interested in when it's sloping down. So we're only interested in the short signals coming out of it. Right. Now, one train of thought is you could just connect both these into an OR signal, and sometimes you get both a long and a short out of this. However, sometimes you'll get a long only, sometimes you get a short only, so that doesn't quite work out. And let's, I'm just going to do some experimenting here. Let's try the XOR and see what happens with that. And no, I didn't think the XOR would work. So, all right. So I'm going to change this. Really what we want is, we need both conditions to happen at the same time. So what we need is an AND node here. So what I did here is a little, yeah, this is kind of like an undocumented shortcut, but you'll find this in some of the earlier videos. So what I did is I right-clicked on the solver here, and you'll see you have these different options. And so I can change this logic node to any of the other logic nodes available. So you can also do that up here. Clicking up here does the same thing. Right. So I can change it to any of the logic nodes I want. All right, so AND node, and so in the AND node, you can see right now, of course, there's no output now because our longs are conflicting with the shorts. So what I'll do is use the I'm going to use the long short modifier, And so let's take a look. So the original signal coming out of this slope solver are long signals. So I want to mirror the long signals and mirror them and get short signals at the same time. So I'll use the modifier here. And so I just need to change the mode. Instead of swap, I will, mirror the long. And so there we go. So now we have a long and a short out of that solver. I will add another long short modifier. And so this time, out of this slope solver, right, we're getting short signals, so I need to mirror the short signals to get longs. So I'll mirror the short signals, and there we go. So I'll disconnect those. Connect that up. And there we go. So now what we have marked is basically like a perfect divergence. Upper band's going up, lower band's going down. It's a perfect case divergence. But let's see. So like I pointed out earlier, let's see if I can find an obvious one. Yeah, this one bar right here, could be a divergence. So let me mark it up here. So if we look at kind of like the slope of the upper band, if we look at how much it's sloping down versus, here, let me put this on top of price. There. So if we look at the slope down of the upper band versus the slope down of the lower band, to me it kind of looks like the lower band is sloping down a little stronger, excuse me, a little stronger than the upper band. So this would technically be a divergence if that was the case. So that's how this isn't quite a perfect system. So. All right, Tom. So that's how we can detect our convergence and divergence, at least for the Bollinger bands or any other kind of bands. Let's see. So Daniel was asking, he wants to be able to identify ABC patterns. And yeah, so Daniel, I remember during our meeting that you had an indicator that was marking the ABC patterns, and I'm wondering if that indicator might have had like a hidden data series. Well, when I say hidden, in other words, a data series or an integer series or a bool series, it's data that's not plotted on the chart, so it's not a plot. It's called a data series. I'm wondering if that indicator might have had a data series in it that might be marking the patterns, the A, B, and C patterns. So Daniel, and unfortunately I don't have an indicator, but for example, I think this might be an example. So this would be like A. I think this could be considered B, and I think this would be considered, let's see, no, technically this wouldn't be considered C because it's a double bottom, but we'll just pretend if this was C right here. So Daniel was wanting to know if there was a way to Excuse me, I'm losing my voice again. So Daniel was wanting to know if there's a way to use like the swings high-low indicator that comes with BloodHound to identify patterns like that. And you know, that is something I would want to kind of practice first before doing this live in the workshop. That way I'm maximizing you know, my time with you guys, so you're not having to sit around and wait for me to figure this stuff out. So Daniel, I'll ask if you could take your question. So Daniel, I see, you know, your question's all kind of broken up, so I see that it looks like you did, you know, try to explain how you thought you could use the I'm sorry, I had the wrong indicator marked here. So Daniel was kind of explaining how he thought he could use the swings high-low to identify the ABC patterns. Yeah, so Daniel, if you could take that right up and, you know, send it to me as a support question, and this might become next week's workshop, something like that. Let's see. Let me put this on the chart. All right, so you can see the thicker purple lines here. So this indicator is very much like NinjaTrader's swing indicator, except you can see that it has continuous lines. So it functions better with BloodHound having all these continuous lines. You know, so it's holding on to these swing points for as long as possible before it identifies a movement in these swing points. So it functions a little better with BloodHound. And this indicator originally came from an indicator on big mics. So the logic behind this was done by Dorshand up on big mics. So I don't remember the original indicator name, but it's something like price action swing. I think it's one of the price action swing indicators, and I think one of the price action swing indicators they wrote has the ABC patterns in it, and so therefore it might have that data series that I was talking about, where you might get the pattern, the patterns identified. I'm just thinking if maybe one of these ANA indicators has a hidden data series. Oh, actually, here. I think I might have an indicator. Here we go, the TC trending TSF. So let me load this up here. All right. Gotta love those motorcycles, huh? I'm going to make this blue a little brighter. All right. So this is a neat indicator, the TCF trending. It's a free one, hosted. It used to be on big mics, but I guess the original author asked that it not be hosted on any other site, so Big Mike had to take it down. So if you do a Google search, I think you'll find the original author of this and cruise around their site somewhere. I think last time I remember a couple of years ago, they had a free download section in which you could find this indicator. Right, so you can see it's the red and blue changing indicator. And so what I wanted to show you is that it has a hidden bool series in it. And so let me make a new one here. And I'm going to use the threshold solver. So the purpose of this is I'm going to show you what I mean by a hidden data series or a hidden bool series that some of these indicators have. and they're added into the indicator so you can use them in a strategy, so you can access this data in a very simple form for programmers to access them in a strategy. So you can base your strategy logic off of them. And BloodHound also can access that hidden data as well. So I'll just switch over to this guy. Okay, so here we go. So we see we have the regular plot, the TC trending, or the trending TSF is just a regular plot, which is the blue and red line on the chart. And then there's this bool series. And you can see it's labeled signal direction. So they used a pretty simple signal, obvious label for this bool series. And this bool series it's a true or false. In programming language, it's a true or false statement. And there's other series available in programming. So the other common one is a data series, which just holds numeric values in it. So it could hold a 1 or a 2 or a 3 value. And so with the threshold solver here, we can use that to access this bool series. And bool series, like I said, is true or false. So a true is converted to a 1. So a 1 would be true in binary, and 0 would be false. So we'd be looking for a threshold of 1 or 0. So true would be 1, false would be 0. And let's see, so we'll go with true being an uptrend, I'm guessing. Yep, so there we go. So when that bool series is in a true state, it's identifying that we're in an uptrend, or the blue line, and I'm sure that that's false. Yep, it's in a downtrend. So this is kind of like the long way to explain to you that I think one of, or several of Dorshan's indicators, the price action swing indicators up on big mics, I believe have some of this hidden data here. So I think they're going to be either data series or integer series that might identify the price patterns that you're looking for there, Daniel, which would be an easier way. But I think probably trying to use the, going back to Daniel's original question, trying to use the swings high-low indicator to identify patterns would probably be an interesting demonstration of logic for BloodHound. So I'm going to disconnect that there. All right, I'm going to look through here and see if there's one more quick question, hopefully a quick one, and then we'll wrap it up for today. So just give me a moment here. Greg is making a little comment. Thanks, Greg. So there's quite a lot of questions or comments in here. So just give me a moment to kind of read through these. All right, so Daniel's got an interesting question here. So Daniel, let me just kind of preface this. I may not be able to figure out your problem without knowing some logic to kind of work with. But actually, no, you know what? I think I can use one of the, yeah, I think I can use one of the solvers actually to try and explain your question here. So here's Darren's question. He goes, well, actually, let me back this up and I'm going to make another new logic here, and I'm going to drop one of the existing solvers on here. And okay, great. So we'll use this, and let me get rid of that. And I'm going to minimize this down to 1. Okay. So I'm going to use this Bollinger Band slope solver as an example for Darren's question here. So keep in mind, so we're looking at these long signals, these long signals here continuing for several bars. Like it looks like we got 7 bars here, and then it turns off. So let me pull up BloodHound again. All right, so here's Darren's question. All right, so I have a system that stays on for quite a few bars rather than just giving one entry signal or giving an entry signal on 1 bar. So this is kind of my example here. So Daniel has a long continuous signal here, like this long signal, like that. And so he says, I want my exit logic to be when the signal turns off, which seems like it should be easy, but he's having a difficult time working that out. All right. So let's do some experimenting here. So my first thought is, let's see, I think I'm going to use the look back solver. So my thinking is, right, so we want, essentially, so what we want is Darren wants an exit signal when the long signals disappear here for my example. So 1 bar afterwards, so the next bar after, when there is no signal, he wants a short, we need a short signal for an exit signal, so we can tell Raven to exit the trade afterwards, right? So, so there's no signal, right, on this exit. So we have to look back 1 bar. So the only kind of information, the only kind of data we have to work with is looking back 1 bar where we did have a signal. So that's kind of my initial thought is we'll use the look back. Oops. There we go. All right, so I have a displacement of 1, all right, and a look back of 1. So now we can see everything's been shifted forward 1 bar. Yeah, everything's been shifted forward 1 bar. So at least we have a signal that on the bar afterwards that we can now manipulate. So now the next step is, well, we only want a signal on this 1 bar here that's right marked by the red diamond. So, all right, I think this is going to be a case for using the XOR logic. So, if there's a short, like 12-minute tutorial video on all the different logics, so if you want to know what the XOR does, you can watch that video. Or, you know, I found that Wikipedia is a great resource for an explanation of what some of our functions do. So if you go to Wikipedia and do a search for XOR, it will explain the logic behind an XOR and how that logic functions. It's got some nice simple charts and explanation of it. Yeah, you know, there's a nice explanation of how an if-then statement works, how a truth table works. All right, so we now, with just one object plugged into the XOR, we just have our standard signal going right through, and then we connect the look back, and yeah, bingo, it worked. So there we go. We have one bar now on we have one signal on the bar after. So let's look at the original signal coming in again. Let's see, I probably need to mark some of these. Oh. So I'm just going to mark the last bar of all of these long signals here. All right, let's take a look at the XOR logic again. All right. It's not giving the perfect results that I'm hoping for. Let's see, so for some reason we're getting a bar marked there and there and there. So I'm going to have to take a look at the outputs here. Oh, I see. Okay, so oh, correct. Okay. So what's happening is the first and last. All right. So we can see when a signal starts up, right? So you notice how all the dots here are marking the first bar of the signal, and so out of the XOR node, we're getting the first. Yeah, we're getting the first entry signal marked and the bar afterwards. Okay, so I'll have to work on that in just a moment. So we're kind of getting there, but so that let me just I'll fix that in a moment. I'm going to step ahead and essentially get the correct signal out. So we want short signals to exit the trade. So we'll just use the inverter here. And, oh, no. Yes, we can use the inverter, or we could use the long-short modifier. Either one will work. With the inverter, you can see it has this swap, so I can swap the values. I can swap the long from the short, but when I do this, I need to turn off the inverter. So you can see these options here, these invert options. I need to turn them off because I don't want it. I don't want an invert. I want to kind of reverse the signals. You know, there's a subtle, you know, most people use those two words interchangeably in their everyday language, but there is a slight technical difference between the two. So I'm turning the swap mode on and turning the invert mode off. So now we're getting our short signals for the exit signals. Okay, so now I just need to work on cleaning up the, let's see, the signals when, yeah, so we need to eliminate the exit signals actually on our first bar of the entry signals. Okay, so all right, I think I might have noticed a pattern there that might work. So let me test this out real quick. All right, I think that's working. First, let me look at the original entry signal. So remember, this is our original entry signal we're working with. And I need to put some more markers on the chart. So I'm marking where we want the exit signals after the entry signal ends. Ah, wow, perfect. All right, so now we have all of our entry or exit bars, right? So all the exit bars are marked, and now we just need to use this inverter. Yeah, so Darren, this was quite a feat of logic that we had to put together here. All right, so there's our exits. So, all right, so let me kind of explain what I saw here with this AND node. So when we're looking at the XOR node, let's see, what I noticed is with the XOR node, remember the arrows here, these arrows are marking the first entry bar. So let's take a look at this. Remember, this is our entry signals. And, no, I'm sorry, the dots. So let me put some more dots. That's right. So the dots are marking the first entry bar. There. I wish I kind of planned this backwards. So the dots are the entries, and the arrows are the last bar of the signal. So I'll just say once again, this toolbar is really, really handy. You can find it up on Big Mike's, and I believe it's up on NinjaTrader's download section as well. And it is called the toolbar, yeah, this top one here, toolbar shortcut. All right, so we're looking at the XOR node. yeah, all right, so you notice the XOR node, right? It's marking, we're getting a signal, right? This is what we want to eliminate, was a signal on the first entry bar, right? So right here, so we're getting a signal on the first entry bar of the long signal, and that's what we want to eliminate. And so when I was playing around with looking at the outputs, when I was looking at the lookback output, I noticed there is no signal here on the first bar. All right, so what the lookback is really doing is it's shifting the whole entry signal, the whole long signal, is shifting it over by 1 bar. All right, so if we take a look, see how the whole signal just kind of shifted over? That's really all the lookback is doing, is it's just displacing the whole signal in its entirety by 1 bar. Right, so it's just displacing it by 1 bar. That's really what it's doing. And so I noticed this shift. And so what that told me was that, right, since there's no signal on the lookback on our entry bar, well, if you have no signal and you have a signal, using the AND node cancels out the signal when you have no signal coming in. So that's why I use the AND node to cancel the first bar here. So because there is no signal from the lookback, and we have the lookback going into the AND node, since there's no signal coming out of the lookback, that's what eliminated the signal on this bar, because there was nothing coming out of the lookback. And so that's how we got the exit signals on the correct location here. And then we just needed to swap them or reverse them, not invert, but reverse them to get the shorts coming out. So essentially, Daniel, what you do is you take the final output of your whole system, and this simple one solver would represent the output of your final system, and you would just connect it into these two into these nodes here, and just build the system, and there you go. So, yeah, that was a good question. I imagine there's other people that wanting to do the same thing. So, all right, well, guys, it's time to wrap this up. So we shifted the time so that I could end these a little sooner. So looks like there's a whole bunch of questions on here. So if if you have something like this that you would like shown in the workshops, I would ask that you just resubmit it as an email to support@sharkindicators.com, and I will address it in the following workshops, as time permits. So if I don't get to your question next week, I'll at least get to it the week after or so. All right, well, guys, have a good weekend and rest of your Friday, and we'll see you all next week. All right, bye-bye.